Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Once again, she entered the world tree, but this time she's alone. Izul, Shiro called out. You called? Izul's voice rang out tiredly. Where are you right now? Shiro asked. Where am I? I'm not sure. Izul replied. Are you able to see me then? Shiro asked once more, since the only thing in the world tree right now was the sapling. Give me a second. You're below me. Are you able to come up? It's a bit hard for me to move, unfortunately. Izul chuckled. Sure. Jumping up, she activated her flight skill. My queen, do you think we'll be able to get her out as soon as possible? Nimue asked worriedly. I'll try. I'm just not sure what kind of effect would occur if I used the life fire. Shiro replied with a slight frown. Amen. Continuing her flight up, they were shocked at what they saw. Suspended in the air while being entwined by numerous vines, a feeble girl could be seen barely responding while her wings were crippled behind her. Not only that, they could see that her eyes seemed hollow despite her eyelids being closed. It was as if there were no eyeballs behind them. Taking a sharp breath in, Nimue looked at Izul in horror. Izul, is this you? Shiro asked hesitantly. Yes, it is. How do I look? I can't exactly see myself. The girl opened her mouth and said softly. It was quite a weird experience since she was both soft and loud at the same time. Feeling a pang of heartache, Shiro reached out to the girl and cupped her cheeks. I can heal you right now and give you some strength back. While I don't know how much this will do, I hope it can help you. She sighed. Activating life fire, Shiro watched as Izul's body started to get some flesh back while her wings slowly repaired. Just as she was about to sigh in relief, she felt a strong suction from the world tree. Draining her mana at a much faster pace than she expected, Shiro's eyes became bloodshot due to the strain of her mana links. SSS. Taking a sharp breath, she retracted her hands and tried to retreat. However, the world tree wasn't about to give up and launched several vines towards her. Generation 3 Zephyr Spirit Online. She commanded and quickly encased herself in her fastest armor. Dodging the vines, she landed back on the ground roughly since she didn't have the luxury to adjust her speed. If she slowed down anymore, vines would have caught her. I'll quickly run. I can't control the vines. Izul called out in worry. All she could do right now was watch as Shiro was being attacked. Stomping down as hard as she could, a burst of cold mist exploded out from her body, freezing the vines and turning them to ice dust instantly. Damn, this astral ice is really potent. Shiro thought to herself in surprise. Since the enemy was the world tree right now, she had expected her ice to only slow it down. She didn't expect it to outright destroy the vines. Feeling the power behind her attack, the world tree was a little fearful and quickly retracted its vines. Phew! Sighing out in relief, Shiro could only furrow her brows. Nimue, I don't think we can extract Izul right now. My mana is being drained at a ridiculous rate whenever I come into contact with that tree. She shook her head. I understand, my queen. When it had tried to drain you of mana, I felt its intent try to invade your mana realm so that it could drain everything. Nimue replied with a frown. I see. That's quite a worry, isn't it? Shiro narrowed her eyes at the sapling which laid in the center of the room. Are you okay? Izul called out. Yes, I am. Though it seems that I can't help you just yet. The tree is quite violent in its ways. Shiro replied apologetically. She was thinking about freeing Izul from the constraints with her ice, but that would mean the tree lost its source of power. Without it, it would just wilt and die. Something that would cause quite the problem. Oh, it's fine. I haven't felt this energetic in a while, thank you. Izul smiled. I'll try come every day to heal you, okay? Shiro suggested as Izul paused for a moment. If that's not too troublesome for you, I would greatly appreciate it. Nodding her head, Shiro looked back at the tree one more time with narrowed eyes. Oi, I know you're sentient. If you try to kill me, I'll freeze your ass into the next generation if I have to, regardless of your importance to the elven race. Endanger my life, and you're my enemy. She warned while concentrating her killing intent on the sapling. The sheer amount of killing intent was suffocating for the sapling, as even after she tried to control it, frost could be seen slowly forming on the surface of its leaves. The branches hastily did a nodding motion as if it was a kid who had just been scolded. Retracting her killing intent, Shiro left the room. Level up. Oh my, that's quite fast. She raised an eyebrow. Now that she needed 50% less EXP, level ups should come more often, especially with Lisa in a dungeon. Allocating her points accordingly, she cupped her chin. I'm not doing anything in particular for now, so I should head into a dungeon too. It would be helpful if I hit level 70 quickly. I can fight level 100s with relative ease, so a level 80 dungeon should be within my reach. Shiro muttered while pulling out her phone. Since she was alone right now, she could head into any dungeon, even if it was under a prince's observation, and stay undetected. Which one should I do? Scrolling through all the dungeons she had found on the web, she looked through the ones that were level 80 and above. While she was looking through these, she was having a casual stroll back to her room. Why don't I test out my ice a little more? A level 80 plus fire-type dungeon should be fine. That's true, but you also want to go against those with a lot of armor and magic resistance. After all, you did have quite a bit of trouble with that mech. That being said, it was designed to go against you, so I'm not surprised. Nimue suggested. Indeed, my Frozen Hell series has come to a halt since I've been focusing a lot on other things. Frozen Slumber is probably my best skill in the series in all honesty. I haven't used the other skills as much. Any ideas for a new spell? Well, so far you've got control skills sorted. What you need is an attack-focused armor penetration skill. Right? I'll probably think of something in the dungeon. Shiro shrugged her shoulders. Settling with the level 85 Inferno subterranean dungeon, she searched up its location and started to make her way over there. The dungeon gate for this particular dungeon was within the first prince's territory, and it was one of his most prized dungeons due to the armor pieces that you could earn from the final boss. It was a set of armor called the Revenant Inferno set. With this set, it has the option of choosing a monster target to lock onto and siphon a little of their powers to upgrade the armor. Even if they died, the power would remain and even increase a little. While this ability wasn't stackable, if you used it on a raid boss, the stats on the armor would increase tremendously. Unfortunately, this didn't account for title bonuses, so even if she used it on a boss, she wouldn't get much. After all, their ridiculous MP values are a result of their insane monster titles that were enhanced by the dungeon. Shiro theorized that if she had become linked to a dungeon, her monster title would definitely get an upgrade. But that was not worth having her freedom restrained. Phasing out of the castle, she made her way to the dungeon. It didn't take her too long to arrive, but when she did, she located several level 100s that were guarding the area. Smiling softly, she activated Rift Walker and Phantom Path. While the level 100s did detect a fluctuation in mana, when they arrived at her spot, they discovered nothing. Spread out, see if you can find who it was. One of level 100s commanded with a frown. Little did he know, Shiro had long entered the dungeon. When her vision had cleared, she was instantly hit by an overwhelming heat wave. Damn, this is a lot hotter than I had expected. Shiro furrowed her brows before snapping her fingers. Surrounding herself with cold mist, she pressed her palms against the ground and smirked. KRRRR. Unleashing a tremendous amount of mana, she froze everything that was within a 200-meter radius. Not only that, the sheer power of the ice had even caused the dungeon walls to crumble apart. Looking past the destroyed walls, she could see several huge armored dog humanoids that held a halberd of sorts. Inferno Gatekeeper LVL 80. HP 80 000 000 /80 000 000. MP 100 000 000 /100 00000. Oh, gatekeepers, huh? That means there should be a fort nearby. Shiro smiled while creating 2-tier, 3 magic circles around her hands. Yura. Detecting an intruder, all of the gatekeepers turned their bloodshot eyes towards her. Raising their halberds into the sky, tens of flaming meteors appeared and shot towards her. Simple. Shiro grinned before slamming her hands into the ground. The 2 level 3 magic circles expanded instantly and covered the ground. Activating her Mystic Empowerment and Sylph Queen's Decree in tandem, she activated her magic. Boom. A huge wave of snowflakes shot towards the meteors and covered its surface. Strangely enough, the fire wasn't able to melt the snow but was instead put out. Frostbite. Shiro commanded while twisting her hands. Turning the magic circles clockwise, she watched as the snow hardened into ice and exploded into hundreds of tiny ice spikes. With the meteors full of her ice, she turned the magic circles counterclockwise. Discharge. Asterisk bang. Expanding instantly, the ice spikes caused several cavities to rupture within the meteors and shatter it apart. Not good enough. Shiro frowned when looking at the result. What she had initially wanted to see was the ice spikes reduce everything into dust, but this was clearly not what she had expected. While she was thinking about what went wrong with the construction of her spell, the gatekeepers glared at her with anger. Turning her head to the side, she watched a stampede of humanoid dogs charge at her with their weapons raised into the air. Oh well, I guess simple is best. She shrugged. Snapping her fingers, she covered the entire area in a blizzard as her body faded away. Seeing this, the gatekeepers quickly activated their barriers and slammed the pommel of their halberds into the ground. Creating an area of fire within this blizzard, they looked around in wariness. You know, putting the fire down is good, but you've already breathed in a little of my snow. That's deadly, you know? Because once it's inside you, no amount of external fire can help you. Shiro's voice rang out as it was eerily calm. A with grave new. Asterisk click. Hearing her fingers snap once more, the gatekeepers were about to turn around, but the moment they moved their bodies, all of their bones shattered into chunks of ice without question. When they breathed in the snow, it had frozen their lungs in mere moments before the same happened to the bones. Once they put pressure on it with their muscles, the bones were bound to snap. Controlling the ice within their bodies, Shiro had them pierce the gatekeepers' brains, killing them instantly. It was unfortunate that the enemy last time wasn't a living being. Otherwise, you'd be damaging them every time they breathe. Nimue commented. True. After all, they can't stop themselves from breathing now, can they? Shiro shrugged before collecting all of their mana stones and loot. Throwing a few mana stones into her mouth, she was surprised at the taste since it was like crackling candy. These ones are quite nice. Might take some back for Een since this is perfect for her. She does like the ones that have a stronger taste. Shiro muttered. Storing the mana stones into her inventory, she checked the loot. Due to the nature of her title, Revolutionary, she had a 50% chance to gain a rare item from the monsters. First was the materials. Ignoring the pile of normal materials, she had obtained several purple-grade materials. Cerberus Descendants Bone Marrow, purple. When used to make armor or weapons, the final result will have an increased chance of burning the target and reducing their healing. Inferno Fong, purple. A rare Fong of an Inferno-infused beast. When used in a weapon, there is a high chance of causing wound damage that inflicts the bleed status on the enemy. Hellfire Plate, purple. A piece of metal that was tempered by ridiculously high temperatures. While hard to forge due to its high resistance, the final product is guaranteed to have high durability values. When used in an armor, it would increase magic resistance tremendously. With these three materials, she could ask Helion to make quite an amazing set of armor. Just as she was about to continue deeper into the dungeon, she saw her level increase once more. Damn, this is efficient. With both me and Lysandra farming at the same time in different dungeons, my level is increasing quickly. She muttered as her lips curved into a smile. Apologize to those that try for weeks for a single level. Nimue protested. PFT, they're not Sylph Queens now, are they? Shiro retorted with a grin. Even so, this leveling speed is ridiculous. Plus, you can farm monsters near level 100 as well. Honestly, I feel like this title is more BS than your Riftwalker skill. Nimue rolled her eyes. True. That being said, who the F***CK is trying to fight hundreds of peak C-class adventurers while only being level 67? No one apart from me, that's what. Shiro laughed. Honestly, did you piss off the god of fate or something? Who else would have this much lethal crap happening around them like you are? Who knows? I've already pissed off a young light goddess by robbing her of Lysandra. Not only that, the light B** starred is still out there, so he'll probably lose his sh*t the moment he realizes that I'm still alive. Shiro shrugged. True. Level 67 and you've already pissed off tier 8 gods. I don't even know anymore. Nimue smiled wearily. Mysteries of life, I suppose. Setting that aside for now, I have a floor to clear. Shiro replied while making a sensor with her second class. Mapping out the entirety of the first floor, she looked at all the red dots on the map, which represented an enemy. Asterisk whistle. That's quite a lot of them. She admitted with a raised eyebrow. Are you or Dash? Shame they're so far apart, so I can't kill them all at the same time. I knew it. Shaking her head, Nimue decided to just watch what happens so that she wouldn't be bamboozled by Shiro's reactions. After all, there was no way that this abnormal girl could be worried about beings under level 100. Dashing towards the closest group of monsters, Shiro had several ice spikes float around her. Whenever they came into contact with anything, they would burst into a cloud of snowflakes before freezing the enemies from the inside out. After clearing out the majority of the first floor, the only thing that was left was the fort in the center of the floor. Along the way, she had collected a huge stack of materials that was more than enough for Helion to experiment with. Looking at the fort, there was one huge mana signal of which Shiro guessed to be the floor boss. One floor, and I'm already level 70. God damn, this could get addicting. She smiled while stretching her body. She had obviously underestimated the power of the title since 5 levels had just been earned as if they were nothing. Factoring the fact that both her and Lysandra were grinding in dungeons higher than their base levels, the EXP gain was tremendous already. Even without this title, she would have leveled up at least twice if not 3 times. Not only that, since she had reached level 70, that meant that she gained a new skill from her class. Force of Elements, active. When activated, this skill would summon an unmissable blade that would strike at the enemy. The strength of the blade is dependent on how many elements you've infused into the skill. Current ratio, number of elements, additional magic damage. 1, 20%/2, 40%/3, 60%/4, 100%/5, 150%/6, 200%. Cost, 15% of total MP. The more elements that are infused, the more MP that's used by the skill. Each additional element after the first one will take an additional 5% of your total MP. Cooldown, 1 hour. Looking at the bonus magic damage she could get when she used 6 elements, Shiro couldn't help but nod her head in appreciation. The main problem with this skill was that at max potential, it would take an astounding 40% of her mana. The worst part is that this is percentage-based and not value-based, thus limiting when she could use it. After all, if she used up almost 50% of her mana instantly, that would put her in quite a dire situation. It's quite a good opening skill, I'd say. You can just get your MP back by sacrificing Ataraxia again, can't you? Nimue reminded. That's true, but I don't want to stick to that all the time, you know? Ataraxia is one of my main weapons outside of the god-slaying sword. But in all honesty, I don't know what to feel about that sword. It's a little suspicious if you know what I mean. Shiro furrowed her brows. That's true. If what you said is correct, the past owner is someone who hated the gods. Someone of his power should be able to leave a shard of his soul or something similar within a catalyst, much like what the light goddess had done in order to try obtain Lysandra's body. Nimue nodded her head. Yeah, I'm not sure what the gods are capable of, so I'll try not to use Akram if I can help it. Shiro agreed. After all, there is nothing in life without any risks. If she was to repair the sword to its peak, what if Vulcan the God Slayer materializes along with the repaired sword? Such was her concerns with this convenient weapon. Shaking her head, she walked into the fort without fear. The moment she stepped inside, several shadows surrounded her and slashed towards her neck. TCH. Clicking her tongue, she sent out a concentrated mana pulse which slowed down their attack. This gave her just enough time to hop into the rift and make some distance between them. Reappearing behind one of the assassins, she pressed her fingers against his back. Blossom. She grinned, taking a note out of Lyrica's skill set. Asterisk, KRRR. Ice exploded out of his chest into the shape of a flower. Every petal that hit the other assassins would blossom into more flowers, causing a chain reaction. After making sure that they're dead, Shiro collected the loot. Ohaya? That's quite an interesting dagger. She muttered. Assassin's Razor LVL 80, purple. Plus 6,000 attack. Plus 3,000 sharpness. Plus 3,000 attack speed. Plus 50% critical chance and critical damage when attacking in stealth. Skill, Silencing Aura. Silencing Aura. When used, it stops the target from casting any abilities. While it cannot turn off passives or abilities that have already been cast, it can reduce their effects by 40%. Cost: 30,000 MP per use. Duration: 5 seconds. Cooldown: 5 minutes. While Celestial Path focused on destroying spells and such, this skill focused on preventing the use of spells. If she was able to combine both of these together, it would be the perfect skill to counter everyone. Debating on whether or not she should recycle this or give it to Chunyu, Shiro decided to keep it for now. If she found another dagger, she'll recycle this one. As for the other items that she got, they were only blue plus ranks and the materials were decent at best. Seems like I'm just unlucky for this wave of enemies. Shiro shrugged her shoulders lightly before making her way to the center of the fort. On the way, she was ambushed by a few more assassins, but they were dealt with easily. It was unfortunate that she wasn't able to level up again, but it didn't matter too much. After all, she was already level 70. Asterisk Creek. Pushing open the doors, Shiro glanced at the figures in the room. Hellfire Grand Knight LVL 80 Boss. HP 80 000 000 /80 000 000. MP 130 000 000 /130 000 000. Hellfire Knight Guards LVL 80 Elite. HP 40 000 000 /40 000 000. MP 40 000 000 /40 000 000. There was one Grand Knight and 3 Night Guards. Frowning slightly, Shiro narrowed her eyes warily. If the guide is correct, the 3 Knights have a support skill that allows them to use themselves to keep the Grand Knight safe. If you kill the Knights within the period that the support skill is up, the Grand Knight will gain 1 stack of rage. However, if you don't kill the Night Guards, the Grand Knight will heal his HP. Once he reaches 3 stacks of rage, his stats will increase by 25%. Since the guide was based around teamwork, Shiro will need to come up with her own strategy. My queen, I'm sure you can just kill the Night Guards without worrying too much. That way, you can just fight it in a 1v1 situation rather than 1v4. True, it shouldn't be too hard. Shiro shrugged. With her arsenal of skills, facing off a level 80 boss alone should be easy enough for her. Cracking her neck, she reinforced her body with mana. Asterisk boom. Stomping on the ground as hard as she could, she launched her body towards the boss. Seeing this, the guards quickly moved in front of him and prepared to intercept Shiro. You 3 are the ones I'm going for. Shiro grinned. Twisting her body, she activated Fey illusions and had a fake copy of her send out ice spikes at the guards. While this was happening, she circled around them, ready to strike at any moment. Just as the guards raised their shields, they had effectively exposed their unguarded backs to Shiro. Her eyes gleamed with sadistic intent as she created 3-tier, 3 magic circles in between their legs. Asterisk Poochie. The Grand Knight paused in shock as he watched 3 columns of ice pierce his subordinates. Their horrified cries rang out, while Shiro created 3 ice hammers and slammed it against their heads, forcing them to go further down into the spikes. Warning: Hellfire Grand Knight has just gained 10 stacks of rage. Stats increase by 100%. The F***CK? Quickly jumping away from the knight, she wondered how in the hell did he gain 10 stacks despite apparently only being able to get 3. However, the Grand Knight wasn't about to let someone who humiliated his underlings to this extent live. Asterisk boom. A pulse of mana exploded out from him, rooting Shiro in place and stopped her from moving her body. Damn, a control skill. She frowned. Quickly activating her magic, she created 2 ice walls in front of her in an attempt to buy herself some time. Asterisk crack. Stabbing his spear into the wall, the Grand Knight gritted his teeth and lifted them out of the ground. Holy sh asterisk t. Shiro widened her eyes. Never had she seen someone just straight up lift her ice wall aside rather than destroy it. Twisting the spear in his hands, the Grand Knight sent the wall flying towards her. Asterisk bang. Crashing against her body, Shiro was broken out of the control skill and quickly healed herself. Rift Walker. Jumping into the rift, she reappeared above the Grand Knight with a shotgun in her hands. Asterisk clang. Firing the gun, she watched as the knight was sent sliding back. Damn, what a hard armor. She frowned. Tracing her finger along the barrel of the shotgun, she morphed it into a sniper and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Asterisk bang. Knocking his helmet off his head, Shiro prepared to launch her second shot, but an overwhelming sense of danger overwhelmed her instincts. TCH. Clicking her tongue, she immediately jumped into the rift. When she exited, she saw a large spear sticking out of the ground while the tip was on fire. If she didn't move, she would have been skewered in a similar manner to the guards. Now, I know that it's real funny coming from me, but would you consider the option of not targeting a lady's rear? Shiro asked with a slightly forced smile. Scoffing lightly, the Grand Knight slammed the pommel of his spear into the ground. A huge magic circle expanded out of him as Shiro felt a sense of danger once again. Jumping into the air, she watched as the entire ground was soon filled with spears. TCH, how annoying, she muttered. The boss had an unblockable control skill along with several large R of effect skills. Not only that, he was also twice as strong as he should be. Such a combination was surely a pain in the ass. Literally. Well, I guess I can't play around anymore. Landing softly against the ground, her smile faded away as she activated celestial armament and celestial element wheels. Choosing astral ice as the element, the surrounding area was instantly frozen without her doing anything. Full. Breathing out a mouthful of cold air, Shiro summoned ataraxia and charged at the Grand Knight. Leaving a trail of ice behind her, she reached out with her hand and activated a Tier 3 magic circle. Countless spikes protruded out from the ice before being launched out into the air with incredible velocity. Looking at the spikes that fell towards him like arrows, the Grand Knight gritted his teeth and punched the ground. Aegis, he commanded and pulled out an earthen shield. Raising it above him, he attempted to block the arrows. However, just as he did this, Shiro activated Azura's sword path and slashed towards the shield with all her might. Asterisk, boom. Crack. Shattering the shield in half, she jumped into the rift so that she could avoid her own ice. Appearing behind the Grand Knight, she stabbed Ataraxia in his back before grabbing his arms. Pushing mana into her hands, she activated Glacial Touch and started to freeze his arms. With his guard being forced apart by Shiro, the Grand Knight gritted his teeth and activated a Berserk skill. Asterisk bang. A deep red aura erupted out of him, sending Shiro crashing backwards, but she quickly adjusted herself and slid on the ground. Glaring at the spikes that weren't affected by his aura, the Grand Knight spun his spear and threw it like a javelin. Asterisk, boom. Shooting out like a missile, it shattered all of the spikes before returning to his hand. TCH, what a pain, Shiro muttered with a frown. However, she knew that as long as she prolonged this fight a little, she'd be able to attack him at full force when he's weakened. Closing her eyes for a moment, she activated the skill that she learned when fighting against the level 100 Rederm in the trial space. Killing skill, Hollow Deceit. This skill incorporated both the use of Fifth Phantom and Berserker Path. When activated, it would create 9 additional copies of her of which she could change places with at any moment. The cooldown was 10 seconds and would use 5% of her MP per activations. However, this skill was worth it since it didn't take as much mana as her other skills. As she activated the Fifth Phantom and Berserker Path, her hair shifted from white to black and her eyes changed to a deep red color. Crouching down slightly, she controlled each of the 9 copies to make different movements while dashing at the Grand Knight. Furrowing his brows, the Grand Knight glared at each of the copies and activated a Tier 3 magic circle. An illusionary armor coated his body while he swung towards the closest copy with incredible speed. Seeing this, Shiro created the Genesis hand cannon and shot it towards the armor. Asterisk ping. Widening his eyes, the Grand Knight didn't expect his skill to be shattered so easily. Quickly adjusting his spear, he attacked the one who had fired the weapon since he guessed that this was the real body. Little did he know, she was able to change places with any of the copies. Changing places with the copy that he had first targeted, Shiro twisted her body and slashed towards the Grand Knight's neck. Suddenly feeling a chill down his spine, the Grand Knight quickly activated another defensive skill but it was useless. Shattering into countless particles once more, his defense was broken with ease. Gah! Crying out in pain, his eyes became bloodshot while he tried to push back her sword that had cut into his neck. Seeing this as an opportunity, Shiro decided to kill him here and now. She also deemed it as a perfect opportunity to test out her new skill, Force of Elements. Injecting mana into Ataraxia, she sacrificed it to regen her MP since she wanted to use the version with all 6 elements. However, doing so would drain 40% of her MP, which isn't what she wanted. Regenerating her MP, she encased the Grand Knight in a block of ice to stop his movements. Activating the Force of Elements, 6 orbs of different colors floated around her before slowly merging together. Forming into a crystal white sword that floated in the air, Shiro felt a little dizzy at the fact that almost half her MP was drained in an instant. Not only that, her mana links were being strained massively due to the mana use, forcing her to kneel down in pain. The Grand Knight paled a little when he felt the sheer amount of pressure and danger that he could feel when looking at the sword. His first instinct was to run, but since he was encased by ice, his movements were halted for now. Seeing that the knight was trying to break out, Shiro narrowed her eyes and aimed her spare hand towards his location. Frozen slumber. Several magic circles appeared around him as chains shot out and wrapped around the ice block. Clenching her hands into a fist, the temperatures dropped rapidly, reinforcing the prison around the Grand Knight. Despite her Force of Element skill being unmissable, she still didn't want him to get too far. While the Grand Knight was chipping away at his prison, her skill was finally charged. A galaxy-like aura could be seen coating the crystal sword as Shiro designated the Grand Knight as the enemy. Asterisk, boom. Shooting towards the Grand Knight, the sword almost escaped the current limits of Shiro's perception, much to her shock. She quickly thawed all the ice so that it didn't reduce the power of the sword. Enlarging itself once it was above the knight, the sword swung down with indomitable might. Asterisk, Pushi. Before the knight could even scream, the sword sliced him in half, ending his life there and then. SSS. Taking in a sharp breath, Shiro was rather surprised at how violent this skill was. Since it had 200% additional magic damage, it essentially tripled her INT value. While her links weren't broken, the strain now prevented her from activating any Tier 3 skill for a short time. Whenever she did, she could feel pain shooting through her body. Damn, I shouldn't use this skill unless I have to, she muttered while walking to the Grand Knight's corpse. After killing the knight, her level had increased from 70 to 71. Quickly allocating her stats, she retrieved the knight's mana stone and collected his loot. Oh my! Raising an eyebrow to the loot that he dropped, Shiro couldn't help but blink twice. There were only 2 rare items, but both were equipment. The first was a spear while the second was a set of armor. Ascended Hell Knight's Spear LVL 80, Purple Plus. A spear that belonged to a knight that had surpassed his limits. Plus 10,000 attack. Plus 10,000 armor penetration. Plus 8,000 attack speed. Plus 30% critical chance. Plus 20% critical damage. Plus 15% parry chance. Skill, Spear Throw EX, Knight's Fury. Spear Throw EX. When thrown, the spear becomes a near unstoppable force that ignores 60% of def values. Cost, 300,000 MP. Cooldown, 2 minutes. Knight's Fury. Every hit you do stacks 1 Fury. When you reach 10 Fury, your next attack is empowered and deals 100% bonus damage on hit while ignoring 20% of DF. Looking at the spear, she realized that this was the answer to her problem regarding defensive monsters. If I recycle this weapon and combine it with the kinetic launcher, I should be able to use the Spear Throw EX since it's technically shooting out a spear as the ammunition. If that's the case, then I can probably start to prototype a new sniper that is more kinetic-based rather than magic-based. Shiro muttered with a smile. But my queen, there is the problem regarding the description. Nimue called out. Oh, what problem? The fact that it says the word thrown. I suppose you would need to throw it manually for it to work. I won't recycle it for now then. Shiro nodded since she'll probably do some experiments later to see if that's the case. Storing the spear away in her inventory, she looked at the armor piece. Ascended Hell Knights chest piece LVL 80, purple plus. Plus 10,000 vit. Plus 7,000 def. Plus 7,000 STR. Skill, Gladiator Aura. Gladiator Aura, Berserk Skill. When activated, VIT, STR and def is increased by an additional 20%. Cost, 10% of MP. Duration, 5 minutes. Cooldown, 10 hours. Backlash, 80% muscle fatigue and muscle strain for 5 hours. VIT, STR and def are reduced by 30% for 5 hours. Understanding that this armor is good for Madison, Shiro stored it away before wondering about whether or not she should go into the boss room. After all, she was a bit injured right now. I suggest that you stop here for now. You've already gained 6 levels, so you shouldn't risk it. Quit while you're ahead. Nimue suggested. True. I can come back in a few days once my mana links have recovered. Shiro nodded and made her way out of the dungeon. Upon leaving the dungeon, she covered her face with her lower face mask and started to dash away. As her links were strained, she needed some time to prepare the rift. Halt! A voice commanded as a heavy pressure bore down on her. Looking up, she could see 3 level 100s looking at her with wariness. Who are you and why were you inside the dungeon? They questioned with a frown. Well, would you believe me if I said I was lost? Shiro asked with a smile. Looking at the confidence and fearlessness in her eyes, when paired with her current body, made her a 10 out of 10 top-notch eye candy. The level 100s gulped for a moment before nodding at each other. I asked you why you were inside the dungeon. Now answer before we take you away for questioning. He warned. Aya, like I said, I was lost. For my sake, you're not taking me away. What if you try to make a move on me? Shiro faked her worries as she was just buying herself some time to use her Riftwalker skill. Furrowing his brows, the level 100s weren't too happy about being accused of wanting to make a move. That being said, it wasn't as if she was wrong either. Regardless, you're coming with us. No one is allowed in this dungeon unless the prince gives them permission. Seeing how serious the level 100s were being, Shiro could only shrug her shoulders. Well, I suppose there is only one thing to do. I bid you fine gentlemen a farewell. Shiro grinned and bowed slightly. Flickering into the rift, she instantly left the area. Damn, it's that burst of mana we felt earlier. It must be a stealth skill. Spread out and use the items that unveil stealth. Meanwhile, Shiro didn't need to worry about being found since Rift Walker wasn't a stealth skill. It was closer to a teleport skill rather than stealth since it sent her into a different dimension. Once she was clear of the area, she left the rift and sighed in relief. I need to be more careful in regards to how I leave a dungeon, she muttered. Shaking her head, she glanced at her stats. Name, Shiro. Race, Mystic Fae. Level, 71. Class, Mystic Sylph Queen, SSS. Ascendant Snowmancer, EX. HP, 3,760, 500/5 for 37, 500. MP, 2, 600, 200/12, 375, 000. STR, 32,000. VIT, 30,000. INT, 66,000 plus 3, 300. AGI, 35,000. DEX, 30,000. DEF, 20,000. Equals title bonus, 45%. Tears of the Sylph Queen plus 5% INT, armor. Unassigned points, 0. With a single dungeon run, her MP had shot past the 10 million point mark while her HP reached the 5 million mark. While her MP reached 12 million, it was hard for her to output the power that was equal to this amount of MP. If she was to use too much at once, her links would be strained and she would be almost immobilized. Even making a simple dagger would cause her body to hurt. Such was demonstrated by her Riftwalker skill. Normally, she could use it almost instantly, but now she had to delay for a few seconds to get it to work. If that was in the middle of a fight, it wouldn't be practical at all. Stretching her body, she walked back to the castle. Meanwhile, the party was a little concerned about what Shiro is doing. Say, Lysandra, your level is linked to Shiro's, right? Madison asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, it is. Lysandra nodded hesitantly. Then how the hell did it jump up so many levels? Shiro's probably challenging another dungeon. Lyrica shrugged. What kind of dungeon would allow her to make a jump of 6 levels? Mind you, this is from level 65 to 71. Aram reminded. That is true. They nodded in agreement. You know it is Shiro, right? I haven't known her as long as any of you have, but I'm pretty sure she's abnormal as sh*t to begin with. Chinyu called out. Once again nodding in agreement, they decided to quickly finish their dungeons and go back to question Shiro about what she was doing. That being said, do you think that she challenged a level 100 dungeon or something? Sylvia wondered. I wouldn't put it past her, to be honest. Lyrica replied while parrying the boss's attack. Twisting her body, she ran her sword up the arm and sliced off a layer of armor. Same, but she's still basically 30 levels behind, you know. Madison reminded. That reminds me. Do any of you even know about her MP value or INT stat? Aram asked curiously. Silences reigned the battlefield while they continued to fight. I don't think so. Last time we heard anything about her INT was back in Kairosa, and that was quite a while ago. Madison shook her head while pinning the boss down with her brute strength. Narrowing her eyes, Aram became more curious about Shiro's situation. Since she guessed that Shiro came from another world, the best bet is that she reset her level and in turn gained a powerful title. However, nothing was certain, so she could only wait for now. ####. Slamming her body against the bed, Shiro closed her eyes and started to plan out the next weapon of choice. She wanted to see if she could incorporate the spear skill into her guns so that the projectile would ignore defenses. To do so, she'll have to modify a sniper or a kinetic launcher. While the option to mix the two together exists, it was going to be hard to make sure that the internal balance of the weapon was stable. She had already struggled a little with the Genesis hand cannon, so this was going to be the same, if not harder. What a pain, she muttered tiredly. She wasn't afraid of the effort that she needed to put in, no. She was annoyed about the gun blowing up whenever she test fires. Last time, the shards had almost pierced her face when she tested the Genesis hand cannon. I'm sure it'll be fine. I know. Closing her eyes, she decided to sleep for a short while so that she could rest her body. Not long after she fell asleep, the party had returned to the castle and made their way to the room. When they opened the door, they were rather surprised at the fact that Shiro was asleep on the bed. It must have been a busy day for her to be sleeping now. Lyrica whispered. Do you think it's because she did fight a level 100 dungeon? Madison asked. I don't think so. If Mum fought a level 100 dungeon, she'd be forced to use her berserk skills. The backlash would put her in a worse condition than this. Her face isn't pale, you see. Ian pointed out. Walking next to her, the party looked at Shiro's complexion and realized that what Ian said was true. What are you doing? Shiro's voice rang out as she opened her eyes and looked at the party with a deadpan face. She didn't expect that the first thing she'll see after waking up from a short nap would be the faces of everyone in the party. Oh, nothing much. We were just wondering what you were doing today. Lysandra leveled up quickly after all. Lyrica replied. Damn, she looks beautiful when she wakes up. She thought silently. How about that? I just challenged one of the dungeons under the first prince's observation. It's the level 80 dungeon. Shiro yawned slightly while stretching her body. With her newly developed body, Chinyu could help but redden up a little while Sylvia jabbed him in the ribs with her elbow, forcing him to look away from Shiro. Naturally, this didn't escape Shiro's eyes as she made sure to tease Sylvia about it later. Wait, you challenged a level 80 dungeon on top of it being under the first prince's watch. Isn't this just provoking the situation? Madison raised an eyebrow. Maybe, but we'll see for now. Shiro shrugged. By the way, Shiro, what's your MP count? Aram asked curiously. Oh, you want to know? Shiro smiled. Yes, I do, since I find it surprising that you can take on a level 80 dungeon without taking too much damage. Aram nodded. What about the rest of you lot? Seeing the party nod their heads, Shiro shrugged. Currently, I have 12.3 million MP. It would be higher if I had my armor, but I've out-leveled it, so I need to find some new equipment. A pin drop could be heard in the room as the party forced themselves to accept that this was normal. So you have 12 million MP? Madison asked after massaging her head. Yup, you know what? I'm surprised you don't have 100 million MP considering the things that we've fought. Madison shrugged since she knew of Shiro's identity as a monster. Of all the monsters that they've fought up to now, most of them had massive amounts of MP naturally. They couldn't compare to Shiro in terms of combat standards, but she had thought that Shiro would be the same. If that was the case, she'll become more monstrous than she is already. Well, getting to 100 million EXP would be a pain after all. Shiro replied. If she wanted to get 100 million MP, she'll have to slaughter the crap out of people in order for her to do so. Why do you make it seem like it's plausible? Aram tilted her head in confusion. Well, of course it's plausible. Have you not seen the people at higher levels? Shiro replied with a smile. Pausing for a moment, Aram agreed with what she said. So what were you doing in a level 80 dungeon? Madison asked. I was trying to get myself some armor, but I had to turn back early since I injured my links a bit. Shiro shrugged. Before I forget, here you go. I know you're a while from level 80, but this should come in hand when you reach that level, she said while pulling out the chest armor that she had received from the Grand Knight. What is this berserk skill? Madison widened her eyes when she saw that this skill boosted her most important stats by 20%. Not only that, it also cost 10% of her mana. Don't worry about it too much. I have several skills that boost by the percentage. Shiro shrugged as the Lyrica, Lysandra, Een, and Sylvia nodded in agreement. Wait, so you girls have already received a percentage-based berserk skill? Yup. While Sylvia might have gotten one because she's a healer, mine focuses on INT. Shiro replied. For my berserk skill, it increases my healing by 100%, but the backlash makes it so that after the period is over, my healing is reduced by 50%. Sylvia replied honestly. There you go then. Shiro nodded. Looking at her party members that seems to be quite acquainted with such skills, Madison could only massage her head. Goodness, I feel like I'm so far behind in terms of knowledge, it's not even funny. She admitted. Well, don't worry about it too much. But if it really does get on your nerves, you should visit the library often and see what you find, Shiro suggested. While the party was talking, the level 100 guards had reported back to the first prince. Sat in his office, the first prince adjusted his glasses and frowned. His blonde hair was tied into a low ponytail, and his body was on the lean side. If one didn't know that his class was Ascended Sword Emperor, they would have thought that he was a mage-type adventurer. You're telling me a level 65 element sage walked into the level 80 dungeon without being detected by you and left before you could even capture her? He asked, clearly displeased. Gulp asterisk, that is correct. I have no excuses. The guard nodded since he knew that the prince hated anyone that tried to make an excuse for their mistakes. Narrowing his eyes, Nelder, first prince, cupped his chin with his hand and crossed his legs. Can you tell me anything about her? Surely you can accomplish that, right? He asked with a frown. What do you wish to know? The guard bowed. Name and appearance. I want to get a background check. Her name is Shiro. As for her appearance, it's better if you have a look at this, he said and pulled out a photo that was taken from the security cams during their last talk. Looking at the picture of the girl, Nelder paused for a moment. Do you know when she appeared in the city? He asked curiously. No clue. We're looking into it right now, and we should get an answer back soon. Good. I'll forgive you for now, but know this. I'm disappointed that several level 100s are able to let a level 65 pass without detections. You can go to the disciplinary quarters and get yourself a level 2 punishment. Don't let this happen again. Nelder shook his head and gestured for him to leave. Thank you, Your Highness, for your generosity. The guard bowed before leaving. Taking a deep breath in relief, he was glad that he only got a level 2 punishment rather than 4. At 4, that's when he'll be put under torture for a few hours. Watching the guard left, the prince returned his gaze on the image. Interesting, a level 65 that can bypass the guards. Not only that, she is also a top-notch beauty. This emperor has never seen such a perfect beauty. I must obtain her one way or the other. He clutched his fist and muttered. Reaching out for his laptop, he sent a few messages to his followers. ####. Tasking the party to continue their grind in the dungeons, Shiro prepared to experiment with her new sniper idea, revolving around the spear throw EX skill. While she couldn't make the product, she could sketch out as many blueprints as she wants in real life. Sitting down near one of the laptops, she placed her finger on the side port and injected a small potion of nanobots. Making herself a private server along with an app that has information regarding all of the pieces that she had in her database, she cracked her neck and started to get to work. First off, I need a spear launcher as the base. Otherwise, the skill wouldn't activate. Second, I need to think about whether or not the spear has to be thrown or not. If it does, I'll need to make a different kind of weapon other than the sniper. Shiro thought to herself while browsing through the list of base parts for the sniper. Nimue wanted to chip in her thoughts, but decided to hold it off for now after seeing how serious her face looked. Tapping away at the keyboard and combining different parts and simulating their chances of success, Shiro was creating a new kind of sniper every few seconds. If the government were to know of this, they'd do everything to get a hold on her. Of course, that wasn't including the fact that she is indeed a literal walking armory with her Snowmancer class. Once that was revealed, she was sure that she'll be hunted down by the majority of the world. Finalizing a few of the drafts, she set them up into a spare folder and continued to work on the other blueprints. This continued for 3 days as on the third, Shiro finally stopped feeling pain from her links. During this time, she had also leveled up to 73 due to Lysandra's efforts. While it could have been higher if she had tried, it was already a blessing that she was getting levels since she wasn't going into dungeons herself. Plus, the party couldn't go for higher level dungeons just yet because they were quite a few levels behind her. Name: Shiro. Race: Mystic Fae. Level: 73. Class: Mystic Sylph Queen SSS. Ascendant Snowmancer. EX. HP: 5, 800, 000/5, 800, 000. MP: 13, 687, 500/13, 687, 500. STR: 35,000. VIT: 32,000. INT: 73,000 plus 3, 650. AGI: 40,000. Dex: 33,000. Def: 20,000. Equals title bonus, 45%. Tears of the Sylph Queen plus 5% INT, armor. Unassigned points, 0. Now that she had recovered her strength back to full in the fact that, and her HP had hit a perfectly round 5.8 million points, which brought her great joy, she prepared to test out her blueprints in the dungeons. Leaving the room, she followed the familiar path and used Rift Walker to enter the dungeon once more. TSK. God damn it, that woman is back. The guards frowned. They didn't attempt to do anything since the prince had told them to leave her for now. ####. Upon entering the dungeon, Shiro's first action was to make the sniper. Flexing her fingers, nanobots started to swarm out of her hands and slowly took the shape of a ballista-type sniper. In other words, it looked like a mix of a crossbow and sniper. As for the main way that the sniper was going to fire the spear, it was through the use of a pressure chamber that was artificially created with her elements. This allowed her to bump up the pressure within the chamber to ridiculous heights. Recycling the spear weapon that she had got and embedded the sniper with the skill, she aimed towards the first monster she saw and hoped that it would work. Live test, don't kill me please, she muttered before pressing the trigger. Asterisk bang, bang. Firing the sniper, the spear flopped out of the barrel with no speed at all. Meanwhile, the body of the sniper had completely shattered to pieces and had sent shrapnel flying everywhere. Reacting instantly and activating both Faded Snow movement and Rift Walker, her body was hit by several shrapnel that she wasn't able to dodge. Well, *T. It works better as a grenade rather than a sniper, she muttered and healed herself up. Exiting the rift, she saw the damage that the sniper/grenade had caused and couldn't help but admire its potency. What do you think would happen if I gave this prototype to one of the princes? Shiro asked Nimue with a small smile. They'll probably die. I mean, you've tested your Genesis hand cannon a bunch of times, so you know to prepare yourself if the gun explodes, but they haven't. So it's either death or close to death. Nimue shrugged. True. Say, I should have already gotten the first prince's attention. All that I need to do is gain the second prince's attention, and the battle should start soon. I'm almost level 75 already, and level hundreds are within my reach. We don't have to play too passive anymore. Shiro smiled. That being said, we still need to get the two of them to attack the third prince. Shaking her head, she focused on finalizing her sniper and getting to level 75 for now. Making her way through the dungeon once more, she collected roughly the same amount of loot as last time. Due to the fact that the level difference between her and the level 80 monsters is closing, the amount of EXP started to decrease, and she couldn't level up as often as before. But despite this, her titles still helped her get to level 75 within this short period of time. On her way here, She continued her experiments, but wasn't able to get one that had balanced well enough so that it didn't blow up. I wonder if I can level up to 80 by the end of this. She wondered to herself while standing in front of the Grand Knight's boss room. Since this was just the first floor, there was one more mini-boss after this, and then it was the final boss. Shrugging her shoulders, she decided to finish the Grand Knight off as soon as she could. Pushing open the door, Shiro didn't waste any time and summoned a pair of hand cannons. Before the knights could even react, she was already in front of them with her guns pointing at the Grand Knight's head. Asterisk bang bang. Pulling the trigger twice, the power forced the Grand Knight back by a few steps. Not good enough, Shiro thought to herself. Flexing her fingers, she turned the guns into a pair of swords and twisted her body. Azura Sword Path plus Sword Domain plus Refraction. Dodging the attacks made by the guards, she stacked a few strength skills on her swords and attempted to decapitate the guards. Unfortunately, her swords only dug in halfway, so she couldn't kill them in one go. TCH. Clicking her tongue, she morphed the swords into shotguns and pulled the trigger right as the barrel was over their face. Asterisk bang bang. Two headless corpses fell over as she aimed her gun at the last knight. Asterisk bang. Widening his eyes, the Grand Knight looked at her in shock. Come, Shiro taunted. This time, the boss only had 3 stacks unlike the 10 stacks he had received last time, so the fight was rather easy. Sitting on the lifeless corpse of the boss, Shiro massaged her neck and looked over at the obelisk. I think I'm going to do some more experiments before going to the next floor, she muttered. ####. While this was all happening, Lyrica couldn't help having a difficult face while looking at Lysandra's level increase. She's level 75 already, she muttered. Glancing at their levels, Lyrica couldn't help but feel a little useless. Een LVL 68 Dark Star Calamity. Lysandra LVL 75 Soulbound Archangel. Sylvia LVL 64 Healing Saint. Lyrica LVL 59 Ascended Blade Dancer. Madison LVL 59 Demonic Shield Berserker. Chenyu LVL 62 Phantom Blade. Aram LVL 57 Apocalyptic Battle Mage. Despite all their efforts, the highest level was still 11 levels behind Shiro. Not to mention, healers generally needed less EXP to begin with. Since most of their enemies in the country were level 100s, unless they were higher than level 80, they would only be a hindrance. Clutching her fist, Lyrica gritted her teeth. No, this can't continue. She frowned. If she wanted to stand next to Shiro, both romantically and as a teammate, she needed to level up faster and gain more strength. My lady, I suggest that you focus on your techniques first, Yuan Tian suggested as he had been tutoring her all this time. At first, it was just because Shiro had told him to, but after staying with Lyrica for a long time, he had somewhat gotten attached to the elf. But if I focused on techniques so much, I wouldn't get any levels. Once the level becomes too big, we won't be able to help Shiro anymore. I understand your concerns, but think of it this way. Why do you think Shiro can fight against those higher level than her? It's because of her technique and experience that she has accumulated up to this point. With good technique and experience, she overcame the boundaries of stats. But her stats are also doubled because she's a monster, remember? Why else would she have 12 million points of mana? Lyrica raised an eyebrow. That's true, but setting that aside for now, if you work hard in your techniques, I can guarantee that you'll have the power to stand besides her. Yuan Tian tried to persuade. But the longer I wait, the harder it is to help her. Have you not seen the speed of which she's improving? Tell me if you can kill level 80s when you were only level 65. Yuan Tian stayed silent since he knew that it would be an impossible task unless he had a party behind him. Therefore, I'm going to risk it a little. Everyone, Lyrica called out. What's up? The party turned around. I'm thinking of taking on a high-level raid or a level 80 dungeon. Naturally, I can't do it alone, so I'm wondering if you'll help me. If we don't do this, we can never assist Shiro when the battle comes. Lyrica said seriously. Of course, these level 70 enemies are becoming a little easy now, and you're right. We need to keep up with Shiro after all. Madison grinned since she's willing to support her best friend all the way. I'm fine with that. I need to be a higher level than Mom so that she knows the value of this baby. Een smiled while floating in the air with her wings spread out. We'll need to get some supplies though. Things like strength and defense potions. We can't just challenge a higher level dungeon without some guarantees. Aram suggested while touching her chin. I'm all in. What about you, Chin? Sylvia asked while turning to Chinyu. I'm fine with anything. Chinyu shrugged as Sylvia nodded at his response. As Lysandra was the only one that hasn't said anything yet, the party looked over at her and waited for her response. Heis. You know, Mum doesn't mind if you're not up to her level since she would rather take on dangers herself. Lysandra shook her head. But I understand your concerns regarding level as well. I can't say much since my level is linked to Mum's, but I will help if that's what you wish. I'll be the one that looks out for everyone's safety. Lysandra smiled softly. Then that's settled. Let's go challenge a level 80 dungeon. Lyrica grinned. While the party had decided to also challenge a level 80 dungeon, Shiro had finally finished the sniper prototype. While it still looked a little crude, she could work with this as a base for now. Armed with several armor penetration skills, the sniper would be one that would reduce everything to shreds. What shall I call this prototype? Shiro muttered before curving her lips into a grin. Let's call you Destroyer for now. At least you're not calling it a *** Destroyer. Nimue muttered since she had no doubt that Shiro would eventually aim for the ass with this weapon to increase the potency of the armor penetration. Of course not. If I did, it will give away my target. Teleporting to the second layer, Shiro saw that she was still within the castle. This meant that she could be surrounded at any moment. Summoning all 7 copies of Ataraxia to float around her so that she could defend at a moment's notice, she created her destroyer sniper and made her way through the castle slowly. Releasing her killing intent at will, she left a frozen tundra behind her. Kisha! Suddenly, a swarm of spider humanoids jumped out from the corner of the walls and spat venom towards her location. Flexing her fingers, I shot out of the ground around her in a 5-meter radius and pierced the spiders. Some were pierced through the body, while others were pierced through the head. The venom that had hit the ice froze over instantly and shattered to dust. Smiling softly, she traced her fingers across the face of one of the spiders before crushing it entirely. Free EXP. Who doesn't like it? Since you're a spider, surely you have a whole nest behind you, right? Shiro said with a grin. Stomping down as hard as she could, the entire corridor froze over with a sheet of ice. All the spiders that were hiding were revealed as she snapped her fingers. All the copies of Ataraxia flew out from around her and started to shred through the frozen spiders. In only a few moments, the corridor was soon filled with corpses. Didn't level up that time. A little unfortunate, but not too bad, I suppose. She muttered with a smile. Since she was now level 75 and the enemies were level 80, the 5-level gap EXP gain was going to be a lot smaller, so levels won't come as frequently. Of course, that's not to say that she won't level up anytime soon. Continuing through the castle, she was ambushed several times by all kinds of assassins. Their drops varied in quality as well, but despite the fact that she had a 50% chance to get a rare item, they were rather poor in her eyes. The bonuses that they gave weren't percentage-based, so they weren't worth it in her eyes. Regardless of how much of a bonus the skill gave her, it would soon become redundant as it didn't scale up with her level. During this time, she had leveled up to level 76. Assigning her stats once more, she looked towards the broken set of doors and knew that the boss was behind this. Flexing her fingers, she created her new sniper, destroyer, and narrowed her eyes. Let's see how well the armor penetration works on the boss, she thought to herself. Stepping through the doors, she immediately activated her Fey illusions and had herself walk towards the center warily. While this was happening, she was climbing up the side of the boss room to get a better view of the entire place. Looking down the scope, she watched as the bonus damage slowly increased. At the same time, she made sure to keep an eye out on the boss. After all, if she didn't hit her mark, the bonus damage would be wasted. Waiting patiently, she controlled her illusion to explore around the room in order to lure out the boss. Just as she reached the far corner of the room, a giant maw suddenly extended out of the wall and swallowed her whole. Widening her eyes, Shiro wondered about the chance of escaping with Rift Walker should she be in that situation. If I react fast, I will have a 50 to 70% chance of escaping. If I'm a bit slow, I'll definitely be eaten. She thought to herself in shock. Quickly aiming at the center of the head, she narrowed her eyes and pulled the trigger. Bang! The spear shot out of the sniper with incredible speeds as a flaming red aura could be seen flicking around the entire body. As the spear pierced the spider's head, the force caused the spider's head to recoil backwards while it screamed out in pain. Kisharia. Seeing the spear burrow deeply into the skull, Shiro knew that she should take advantage of this as much as possible. Making a second spear, she fired it towards the abdomen and pinned it to the ground. Finally realizing who had shot it, the spider glared towards Shiro. "What's the use realizing now? You're already dead." She grinned and fired the third spear. Boom. Hopping down from the wall, Shiro walked towards the corpse of the spider and couldn't help but marvel at the power of her new sniper. While the boss was more of an assassin type rather than armor-reliant type, it was still quite amazing that she could kill it in only 3 shots. Resting the sniper on her shoulder, she crouched near the body and excavated the mana stone. Collecting the corpses, she wondered what kind of loot that she'll obtain. Unfortunately, there were only 3 items that dropped and 2 of which were rather poor. The only worthwhile item would be the venom dagger that the boss had dropped. Paired with the skill, Venom EX, it would deal heavy amounts of poison damage along with a chance of paralysis. The poison would naturally wear off after an hour, but within that time, it was a powerful combat tool. Recycling the dagger instantly, she applied it to her sniper so that it would deal both armor penetration and poison whenever it hits an enemy. "I can't help but feel that this sniper will become something horrific." Nimue raised an eyebrow. "Well, I need something that can kill after all. I can't present them a pretty flower hoping that they'll just drop dead, ha." "True, but why didn't you add that to your hand cannon?" "That's because I'd have to readjust the already delicate balance of the hand cannon. In terms of stability, the sniper is much better since it only revolves around one concept rather than multiple. If I added this skill to the hand cannon, I'll need to do a bunch of optimization and redesign to make it work." Shiro shrugged. Redesigning the hand cannon would be a pain. Plus, the times that she'll need this skill would be again humans that are high-leveled or monster bosses, so the sniper would be the best choice. There was just a slight problem since they could just grab the spear and throw it back at her. Imagine the irony? Being killed because they threw my weapon back at me, ha. Well, it's not like you haven't almost killed yourself several times with your own weapons already. True. Taking a moment to regenerate her missing mana, Shiro teleported to the last and final layer. Once the light faded, she saw that she was in a giant open space with an altar of sorts in the middle. Kneeling in front of the altar, a large winged demon was praying silently. Revenant Inferno Reaper LVL 80 Boss. HP 200 000 000 /200 000 000. MP 300 000 000 /300 000 Not only does this boss have a huge amount of HP and MP, its defense stat was also quite high, reducing the amount of damage that it would take. To top it all off, it had the rejuvenation skill as well. This was the skill that she had ran into when she killed the Yeti Berserker way back, when Ian was still a little bird. The main use of this skill was to regenerate all damage received within the last 5 seconds, so she couldn't even ambush it at the start, since it'll regenerate everything. Since it's going to be a rather prolonged battle, I'll need something that's quite heavy-duty. She thought to herself while browsing through all of the armor blueprints that she had stored in her mind. Going over to the heavy tank-type armor, she searched for the most powerful one that she could build right now. Generation 2 Mobile Rail Tank. While it has great power and defense, the mobility is non-existent. If I used this against the boss, it would drain my MP rapidly. She furrowed her brows and ignored the first option. Going through a few more, she finally settled with the 3rd generation Diamond Guardian. While it doesn't have as much attack as the other heavy-duty mechs, it has decent mobility and amazing defense. This was what she required RGHD now since power could be compensated later, but mobility was rather difficult. Flexing her fingers, she released a stream of nanobots which slowly covered her body. A mechanized suit was created piece by piece with the final result being a miniature mech that had crystal white armor. Creating a few guns, she had them attached to the back and hip while she held 2 copies of Ataraxia. Now that she was ready, she took a deep breath and prepared herself for a long fight. Crouching down slightly, She dashed towards the Reaper and aimed all the weapons on her miniature mech. "You dare!" interrupted the sacred ritual. "Die for your foolishness." The Reaper frowned and stood up. Measuring at a humongous 3 meters tall, he brandished his greatsword and swung it towards her. Surprised at how weightless the greatsword seemed, Shiro knew that this was just the result of the Reaper's ridiculous strength. Pivoting on her foot, she raised up Ataraxia and attempted to parry the demon's attack and have the weapons fire at his unguarded body. However, just as the greatsword came into contact with Ataraxia, it phased through the first sword, much like what would happen if she used refraction. But since she knew of this skill, she had already prepared by having a second copy of Ataraxia in hand. Dang. Shocked by the recoil, Shiro gritted her teeth and redirected the sword as best she could. Crashing into the ground, the impact almost made her lose her footing, but she held out in the end. Glancing over at the demons, she had a look at how much damage her guns did to him. CK. She thought to herself. She could see several white marks, symbolizing the bullets that had failed to penetrate his skin. Regenerating the lost health instantly, the Reaper grinned before reaching out for her head. Berserker Path. Countering his grab, Shiro piloted the miniature mech to circle around the Reaper and pin his arm to his back. Flexing her fingers, one of the shoulder panels morphed into the destroyer sniper and aimed at his head. Bang. Firing the weapon without hesitation, she was surprised to see the Reaper turning his head and bite the spear tip, stopping it from going further. "Well, damn, didn't you drink a lot of milk?" She couldn't help but say. "I don't think it's the best time for jokes, my queen." "It's fine. It helps me focus in battle and throw off my opponent," Shiro replied while jumping back to avoid the Reaper's spare hand. Massaging his wrist, the Reaper narrowed his eyes at Shiro. "What is that armor, woman? In all my years of being the dungeon boss, it's the first time I've seen such a contraption," he asked with a frown. "What?" Shiro raised an eyebrow. "Annoying woman. First you interrupted my sacred ritual, and now you can't even register a simple question." He snarled at her before charging at her once more. He seems to remember everything in the dungeon. Does this mean that he is used to the feeling of being killed? Shiro wondered to herself. "What sacred ritual are you on about?" Shiro questioned while avoiding his strikes. Using the Phantom Path footwork, she was able to keep a certain amount of distance between her and the Reaper. "None of your business." Bang. Punching the ground, hundreds of hands erupted out and tried to grab onto her. Quickly jumping backwards, she created a set of rocket thrusters and flew high into the air. However, the Reaper only spread out his wings and chased after her. "Just what I wanted." Turning her body, she raised her hand towards him and activated Frozen Slumber. KRRRR. Seeing that his body was slowly being frozen, the Reaper only frowned before activating his Inferno Aura skill. Fire burst out around him and started to melt the ice slowly, which surprised the Reaper since most ice would instantly evaporate due to the fact that the skill scales up to his INT value. Surprised? Do you want to know why? Shiro asked with a grin. This was only her distraction since she had already activated Fey Illusions and was charging up an extra strong destroyer shot that would hopefully injure the Reaper. Even if he does regenerate everything that happened in the past 5 seconds, it should be fine if she had 2 shots ready. "I permit you to speak, woman." The Reaper frowned while tearing off the chains with brute strength. "Well, I won't tell you." Shiro laughed before she charged towards him with both copies of Ataraxia. "Fool, do you think a mere illusion can distract me?" His calm voice rang out as he shot towards where Shiro's real body was. Understanding that things were starting to go south, Shiro fired her sniper. Bang. His body flickered away and dodged the shot with ease. Gritting her teeth, Shiro understood a huge flaw with Destroy. While its power and ignore defense was strong with the spear, the fact that it uses the spear as ammunition makes it so that the travel time was a lot slower than what she had hoped, giving her enemies a small opening to dodge. Looking at the Reaper that was literally steps away from her, Shiro made the decision to abandon her armor so that she could fight around using her Rift Walker skill a bit more. But before she could do that, she needed to survive this hit first. Activating all of the defense skills and modules on the mech, she gritted her teeth and prepared to parry whatever the Reaper threw at her. Twisting his body, The Reaper activated one of his attack skills and swung his flaming sword towards her body. Which skill is it? Flaming duplication, or is it severing? Shiro wondered with a frown. Both skills had a similar visual cue, but the effects were completely different. Duplication would have 5 blades appear before contact and attack the enemy 5 times with the base power, while severing would give the boss 50% bonus attack damage. Regardless of what happened, she'll need to make sure that she blocks this, or else she'll suffer quite a lot of damage. Narrowing her eyes, she focused her mind. Unknowingly, she had activated her skill analysis and peered into the body composition of the Reaper. Surprised at how she was able to see his muscles, Shiro failed to react in time and took a heavy hit on the arm. Gah! Sliding back a few steps, Shiro quickly healed up her shoulder. To think that analysis skill could also help me see the muscle movement along with the internal composition of an item. Then again, I suppose it's only natural since it's pretty similar. She wondered to herself while disassembling the armor. Oh, are you not going to use your armor anymore? The Reaper asked but didn't stop his attack. I don't need it against someone like you. Shiro replied with a grin. While she could now see the muscle movements, it was still quite a lot of information to process at once, so she couldn't do it perfectly just yet. Not only that, since she could see the movements, the feints become much harder to differentiate. This is both good and bad. Good because once mastered, I'll be able to see the enemy's movements as clear as day, but bad because it's quite overwhelming to track everything. She thought to herself while dodging his blade narrowly. Focusing her eyes on his arm, she would see when he's ready to swing his sword since the muscles would tense up. Not only that, if she followed the movement to the chest and the side chest, she'll be able to see the direction of the swing. Moving her body just before he swung, she was able to open up a much bigger gap for her to retaliate. Sword domain plus Azura sword path. Swinging Ataraxia at the Reaper's shoulder, she attempted to disable his movement as much as possible. Dang. Before her sword could even hit, he blocked it with his wing and sent her sliding backwards with a single flick. TCH, I focused too much on his body. Shiro frowned. If she didn't have this activated, she would have seen the wing try to block her attack and work around it. But at the same time, should she not have this, she wouldn't have gotten this chance either. In the end, she decided to keep this on since it gave her a little more freedom with movement. Taking a deep breath, she ignored the slight pain from flooding her eyes with mana constantly and activated Element Shift, Celestial Armament along with Celestial Element Wheels. Choosing lightning as the base element, her hair turned into a silver blonde while electricity flickered off of her body. Let's try this again, big boy. Shiro grinned and pointed her sword at the Reaper. Seemingly displeased with her provocation, the Reaper frowned. In this situation where you cannot do anything, do me. You think things can change? I've seen many with your kind of attitude, and each one has fallen to my blade. He frowned and slammed his sword into the ground. Ho, then what about the thousands of times that you've been killed then? Shiro retorted with a grin. They were in parties and their teamwork was impressive. You are but one woman. In my world, we call this foolishness. Foolishness? Perhaps. But who said that I can't kill you alone? Shiro trailed off a little before her body disappeared. Appearing above him with lightning flickering off her body, she twisted her body and slashed at him with her sword. Focusing on his muscle movements, she then snapped her finger and pushed her momentum to the opposite direction, catching him off guards. Pushii. Shocked at the sudden change in attack direction, the Reaper widened his eyes at the deep cut on his shoulder. SSSS. Taking a sharp breath of pain, he grabbed the sword while the lightning tried to sear his arm much like what it did to his flesh. However, Shiro only smiled when he grabbed her sword. Switching the element of her sword to astral ice, she froze his wound and had it try to attack his bone. Annoying woman. Just die already. The Reaper growled and pulled the sword out of his body forcefully. Letting go of Ataraxia, Shiro flipped her body into the air and pushed her hands in front of her. For Tier 3 magic circles expanded out from under the Reaper's feet. Boom. A thunderstorm appeared within the magic circle and attacked the Reaper's body relentlessly, leaving faint burn marks everywhere. But Shiro wasn't worried about the result, since this was meant to be a distraction anyways. Activating every path along with Hollow Deceit, 10 copies of her charged towards the Reaper relentlessly. Instantly locating the main body, the Reaper sneered and swung his sword towards her. Aya, never leave your back open. What if that was the true body? Shiro grinned. You can't trick me. I see through your illusions. He shouted out. Narrowing her eyes, she waited until the very last moment and switched places with her illusion. Asterisk Pushi. Leaving a shallow slash wound on his back, Shiro flexed her fingers and created Genesis. Shoving the gun deep into the wound, she pulled the trigger. Asterisk bang. The recoil forced her back as she activated her flight skill and quickly dodged his panicked swing. Examining his body with her eyes, she saw her bullets hit his shoulder blades and were stopped. Damn, his body is tough, she thought to herself. Making some daggers that were enhanced with celestial path, she twisted her body and threw them towards him. Swatting them away like flies, the Reaper clasped his hands together and summoned a Tier 3 magic circle. Infernum Sanction, he commanded. Fire rained down from the ceiling and created several columns of fire around the boss room. From the columns, hands were formed as fire golems slowly formed from the fire. New. Infernum Judge LVL 80 Summon. HP 50 000 000 /50 000 000. MP 50 000 000 /50 000 000. Giving the room a quick scan, she noted down that 12 judges had spawned. Infernum Sanction, a skill where the Reaper would summon judges that would attack once you violate a rule that he has set within the area. Once you discover what this rule is, they'll stop attacking you. Best way to solve this is to copy what the Reaper does, since this skill also applies to him. Limitations: he must set a fair rule that would affect both of them, or else the skill would fail to activate. Furrowing her brows slightly, she glanced at his health and wondered how likely it was for her to finish him off quickly. HP 175 400 030 /200 000 000. TCH, only around 25 million damage done so far, Shiro thought with a frown. With his defense, reaction, and battle experience, she would find it a little difficult to finish him off with her Throne World. Not only that, the MP drain of her Throne World was rather intense and could leave her in a difficult situation when it ends. The best thing to do for now is try to make him waste his MP so that he can't use as many skills. Slamming her hand down, she released her killing intent and started to freeze the entire room. Since her ice had upgraded into astral ice, the fire columns could barely melt them. Now that she had set up her ice field, she was constantly regenerating some mana using her passive skill. But before she could do anything offensive, the Reaper's sword rapidly closed in on her head, forcing her to slide backwards as to avoid being decapitated. Quickly tracing her finger along the floor, she sent ice spikes piercing towards the Reaper. Unfortunately, they were deflected with ease. You know, I should have a punchline for this, but I don't have anything other than a really big F*** gun coming right up. Shiro grinned and quickly ducked down. Boom. Exploding out from under the floor, a giant mounted rail sniper aimed its barrel towards the Reaper and fired a huge spear. During the time that she had froze the room, she started to construct the gun underground using Destroyer as a base, since the armor penetration was much needed in order for her to deal some damage to the boss. Widening his eyes, the Reaper realized that he couldn't block this and could only grit his teeth and try to reduce the damage he took. Pushii. Gah! Piercing through his body, the spear pinned him against the wall while he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Shiro saw this as a perfect opportunity. Just as she was about to approach him, the judges sprang into action and charged towards her. TCH, what kind of rule did I violate? Shiro thought to herself in annoyance while dodging their attacks. However, every attack they made would send an inferno chain shooting towards her in an attempt to lock her down. Furrowing her brows, she glanced towards the Reaper that was trying to unhinge the spear from his chest. Realizing that he hasn't used his skill yet because the spear was stuck through his body, Shiro understood that this was a golden chance. Since the spear is in him, if he used the rejuvenation skill, it would heal his flesh around the spear. It wouldn't be able to push it out like the bullets since it has pierced him. She thought to herself. Correcting her footwork a little, she dashed towards him in an attempt to pull him into her throne world. Once that happens, she'll be able to finish him off without the worry of him regenerating everything. Gritting his teeth, the Reaper formed a knife hand and tried to cut the spear in half. But before he could succeed, Shiro activated her throne world and pulled everyone inside, including the judges. Snapping her fingers, several mounted rail snipers were created and aimed towards the monsters. If I didn't pin you with the first shot, you probably could have avoided this, but you don't have anything in your arsenal that can help you this time. Shiro smiled and commanded her guns to fire at will. Asterisk, bang, 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 bang. Sitting on the side, Shiro had a smile on her face while kicking her legs back and forth. She also sacrificed ataraxia so that she could deal as much damage as she could. While she did want to find out why he could remember everything and see if she could learn more regarding what the dungeons are, things would get a bit annoying if he didn't die. Keeping an eye on his health, she only stopped once she was sure that he had died. Level up. Are you sure you don't want to question him? Nimue asked. She had stayed silent for the fight since she didn't want to distract Shiro at the moment. Any distraction could lead to a serious situation. It's fine. I can come back when I've leveled up a bit more, or I can also try to find Isilia's notes. She did do a lot of research in order to create the fake dungeon after all. Shiro replied with a shrug. Crouching near the Reaper's corpse, she was rather surprised at the armor since it was different compared to what she had expected. Ascended Inferno Lord Set.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.